Well, as you can see, I was cut off there at 15 minutes. I was rattling on that much. I was in the zone and I was talking away, and I didn't actually realise that the video had stopped. So, do apologise for that. So, part two of today's video, and I was talking, of course, about the strong polar vortex, actually stronger than normal for the time of the year, but and it explains probably the type of weather that we're getting at the moment with the enhanced jet stream, and of course, you throw in the tropics and it kind of enhances the overall theme. But the polar vortex slightly stronger compared to normal actually for the time of the year, you could argue. But if you look at this chart here, this is the zonal mean winds at 10 HPA, which is way up at the very top of the stratosphere, of course. And they were generally blowing kind of somewhat above the average here for a period of time. But as you notice here, that as we go towards the second week of October, the date goes along the bottom. And you can see here, of course, this thick red line indicates the average. We actually start to see the winds kind of dropping below average at 10 HPA, which is very interesting indeed and very significant because this all coincides with both the ECMWF, the GFS, and various other models. And this is the ECMWF, by the way. There is a strong indication towards the end of October, as you can see here, that there is significant weakening of the polar vortex. And, in a sense, if you ask, Mark, what does that mean exactly? It suggests that we're going to start to see some very unusual, strong warming. So typically, the polar vortex, you don't typically see it strengthening. You don't typically see a warming of the polar vortex until you get into the middle portion of the winter, and even more so the second half of the winter. Sudden stratospheric warmings, it might not necessarily be indicate that we're going to see a sudden stratospheric warming, but what it may indicate is that you're going to start to slow down the jet stream, the polar jet stream. You're going to start to see an increased chance or probability of blocking higher pressure in the mid to high latitude region here. All this, in essence, indicates that you're going to start to see the possibility of a release of that cold air over the polar region down into the mid latitude region. Of course, still doesn't guarantee the UK is going to see some very, very cold weather. That doesn't guarantee anything. What it does suggest, though, is we're going to release some of that polar air into the mid latitude pattern, and exactly where the ridges and the troughs set up, that will determine where the cold and the mild turn out to be. So it's interesting to see that the modelling is indicating strong probability during the second half of October we see a significant weakening of the polar vortex here. In essence, this all coincides very nicely with the solar minimum, the lag effect, increased North Atlantic blocking, so the negative AO, the negative NAO, I showed you just there now, we see that increase in negative after solar minimum. So we've seen that in the early 2000s, we've seen that in the 2009-10, 2010-11 period, and it looks as if we're seeing that now following the most recent solar minimum. So we've seen it last year, and that may be last year may be a precursor of what we're going to see this upcoming winter season. Folks, there is no guarantee that we're going to get a brutally cold winter, but like I've said in the past, this to me is the big year. This year, possibly next year, with regards to how to basically indicate whether this solar minimum thing has anything to do with cooling winters and so on. I have my skeptical head on that would suggest that, listen, if it doesn't produce this year, I sometimes think there isn't the strong the strong relationship between solar and Earth's temperature as as previously thought. So it's going to be interesting. I think this upcoming winter could be a big answer to some of the questions that we've got with regards to the solar cycles and the downturn in activity within the sun in the last couple of decades here. It's going to be very, very interesting indeed. And finally, because I think I've spoken enough tonight, it's interesting to see this is the CFSV2 for the in November period, and as you can see here that we've got some pretty strong block in North Atlantic extending into Greenland. We do have a negative over Scandinavia that would indicate that there's a possibility of it sliding down into the UK, which is very, very interesting. Again, it coincides very nicely with everything that I've been speaking about this evening. And this is the month of December. And you can see here again that we've got a lot of high latitude blocking North Atlantic, Greenland, Arctic. This would be what you would want to see based on all the different parameters in place here. So I think that's it for tonight. I will continue to talk more about the winter things that develop over the next couple of weeks or so. I'm going to continue to monitor. We're going to look at the Siberian snow cover. We're starting to see that increasing as well. We've seen record breaking cold in parts of eastern Siberia. We've seen some unusual chill snowfall early on in Alaska. We're starting to see Alaska turning white as well. And there's a lot of interesting things going on at the moment right here on YouTube, marfloganweather.com, Twitter. I'm going to try and keep you up to date as best I can on all the different aspects, things that the media is not showing you. And folks, there is still a lot of warmth out there. The planet is warmer than normal at the moment, by about 0.3 Celsius. But there's no denying that. There's no getting away from that. We've seen the global temperature also increase, and I think that's in response to the fact that the La Nina dissipated over the last few months. It's coming back, so I reckon we're going to start to see the global temperature follow suit, especially towards the springtime, and of course the winter, if everything pans out the way I think it will. But I think I've rambled long enough. Do hit the like button on both the part 1 as well as the part 2. Subscribe and hit the bell button if you want to get notified on all the latest videos. Hope you have a great rest of your evening, what's left of it, and I'll be back in the next couple of days with your day-to-day weather. Bye for now.